in understanding. What I find is that how and when did people start considering a cough or a cold or a fever as weak immunity?
True.
Why does, when someone have migraine, why is that not considered weak immunity? Why, when there is a fibroid in your uterus, why is that not considered weak immunity? Why, when you have cysts in your ovaries, or when you have um, thyroid hypothyroidism, why is that not considered weak?
यार कॉपी पेस्ट थोड़ी करना होता है, नकल भी आप ठीक से नहीं मार।
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you start looking at things in a very differential way, that this is low immunity, this is high immunity, this is low immunity, this is high immunity, you make a very big mistake, because there is nothing in the body that is disconnected. It is all connected. In fact, I would go as far to say that a little common cold or a high fever is actually a sign of a thriving good immunity. Quite the opposite of what people consider. Most people think that my child should not be getting a cold again and again. Can you do something to increase the immunity? Now, I am not here to do that. I'm here to do exactly the opposite. They have good immunity and we let them be with that immunity. What you have inside you, which are the ones, the problems that are not solved, are the ones that require that immune support. And this is what we treat. So, the most important thing for people to understand is that what you perceive as low immunity is actually not low immunity. A high fever is not a low immunity symptom. A high fever only comes when you have a very good immune system, or rather, when your immune system is mounting a fantastic response.
True.
Low fevers happen when the immune system cannot mount a good response. Low fevers happen when there are septic conditions. If there is persistent, or when there is a deep chronic condition developing, when there is, let's say, 2 months of persistent 99 temperature, then I would be really concerned and explore for any cancer developing. But if there is a viral fever like what we have right now, yes, it is 98% of it is mild, only 2% is moderate to severe. The ones who are getting it mild are in fact coming out and saying that after my bout, I feel much better. Why? Because their immune function mounted a fantastic response, and that response ended up doing a lot of good. And this is exactly what I want to talk about today. When we speak about immunity and homeopathy, this becomes extremely important. When you have a problem in your system, let's say you have period pain, or you have headaches, or you have a skin issue, or you have maybe something in your connective tissue, joint pain or something like that, back pain like what you had,
Yeah.
then it means that there is a buildup of toxins, a buildup of chronic inflammation, which hasn't found a way out, which hasn't found a drainage. Now, in my opinion and in my experience, homeopathy allows a drainage, which is why I find that it scores over other systems. Like, for example, you have a skin problem. Okay, you go to a regular skin specialist for addressing your skin issue. The skin specialist is likely to give you something to temporarily halt the discomfort caused by a skin problem, burning, itching, bleeding, oozing, whatever it may be. But what has happened is that, first of all, the body could not deal with the chronic inflammatory toxins, which is why it put the stuff out on the skin. Now you can't bear to see the sight of it, so you're driving it back in. So that means no drainage took place. Your body becomes a garbage bag. So when you do that, you start seeing other problems. When I see young children, especially with skin issues, or when I see young children with recurrent bronchitis, where there's a wheezing sound in their respiratory tracts, the mothers will tell me that ever since this has happened, child has also become more cranky, or the child is not sleeping well at night. One reason is the physical reason, they are scratching, the other, or coughing. The other reason is obviously lack of drainage. You get what I'm saying?
Correct.
So, with homeopathy, when I give you a homeopathic medicine, there are times I will forewarn you. I will tell you that there is a possibility you could get a cold or a cough or a mild fever, do not suppress it. Do you know why I say that? It is too much information to tell you in the first time itself that your body is going to find a way out to drain the toxins that it has been holding all this while.
Correct.
And if we do not allow that drainage, you are seeing around you what you're seeing around you. You are seeing fatter bodies. You are seeing people struggling with chronic issues. When I was rather growing up, I first of all do not remember any child with allergy or skin issues in my class. We would all be present, except if there was there was a communicable disease like chickenpox or measles, in which case we knew that 14 days the child wouldn't come, or there was a fall and fracture and that child couldn't walk or something. But we did not have issues of allergy. We did not have issues of frequent respiratory tract infections. We did not have issues that dog children today. And to speak, when I look back at it, I grew up in a place which was very polluted. It had a lot of chemical industries, so it's not like I lived in some green forest land or something. No, absolutely not. Absolutely dirty, poor quality air. And we didn't fall sick because we had immune functions that were allowed to function. You see, when I had a fever, my grandmother allowed me to have the fever. She did not suppress my fever. She didn't say, "Arey baap re, bachche ko kuch ho jayega." No, no, no. She said, let her deal with the fever. It will make her stronger. Today's parents seem to think that every fever their child gets will get converted into seizures. This does not happen. First of all, it does not happen. Second of all, most pediatricians agree that every high fever, if it does lead to only 10% of them lead to seizures. If it does lead to a seizure, it does not cause any damage to the brain. In
Correct.
fact, seizure is like a rest to the brain. It just rests the brain, and immediately, that very moment or the next few minutes, the fever breaks. So clearly, what we need to understand is the body builds chronic inflammation because it hasn't been able to drain it, and we have to provide a mechanism to drain it. And this is exactly where homeopathy plays a role, which is why then, when by the time somebody comes to see me, I say, well, you'll have to do this in terms of your food, only to aid the process. It's not my whims and fancy. It's not me being idiosyncratic. It's not me wanting to screw your life further. It is only to aid the process. Yes. So those who seem to do it, they seem to see the benefit. They seem to see things getting better. So it has got very little role that I play. It has got more of a role that the body itself steps up. Your body is phenomenal. It steps up every time you give it an opportunity, and it suffers every time you block that opportunity. So you have developed a cold. There is a proper running nose. Some people find a greenish yellowish discharge. It is the body telling you, I am draining something. If you microscopically study the discharges, it is nothing but a bunch of virus, bacteria, dead toxic material and mucus and a lot of such stuff, skin debris and all coming out. And it is fantastic. I mean, it's draining automatically. But no, nobody wants that. People just want in one day I have to get better. So that one day business now has to shift. That ideology has to shift. My conventional medical colleagues, I work with a lot of conventional medical colleagues. On a regular basis, I speak to gynecologists, to cardiologists, to neurologists. They all agree. They are also open about homeopathy. So really, I meet some amazing people who are open about homeopathy. They say, if it works, so be it. Let your patient do it. You have to know, as a doctor, I have to know where to draw the line and send the patient wherever else. But when people take medications themselves, what is happening in India, unfortunately, in this current situation, is when people have taken medicine in their own hands.
True.
They take I have known people who have taken steroid on day one of COVID. Taking steroid on day one of COVID is dangerous, extremely dangerous. So this is where I think what is going wrong all over the world, especially more so in India, is the ease at which people are popping pills. This is so if you have a headache, for example, headache is a communication channel. You are blocking the communication channel. You are shutting off the communication between the brain and your body. The minute you do that, that toxic buildup is going to continue to worsen.
True.
And when that happens is when your headaches come back every month. Or one day the headache will reduce, but you'll suddenly develop an arm pain, or you'll suddenly develop a back pain. You know what happened to you when you had headaches
Yeah, yeah.
and you got pain medication for it.
So much. That's how it all started.
That's how it started. So at a very young age, your body tried its level best to release the toxins. When it couldn't, so it starts with the superficial, I'll tell you, immunities track how it moves. It
Hmm.
starts with the most superficial. The first place it will try and do some, show off of its toxic buildup is the skin and mucous membrane. So the
Correct.
first place that you will notice something is wrong is when something comes up on the skin or something comes up in the mucous membrane, nose, throat, urinary tract, vagina, ears, and this nasal cavity, adenoids, tonsils, etc.
Yeah.
This is all visible to your eye.
Hmm.
And then if you suppress this by giving antibiotics, antihistamines, or whatever it is, then it goes to the next level. It goes into the chest cavity, or it goes into the stomach. Stomach is some place you can't see. Even if you use an endoscopic probe, you can only see very little.
Yeah.
And when it goes into respiratory cavity, in small children we can't see anything. Besides, an X-ray is only 2-dimensional. An X-ray is not 4-dimensional, right? So clearly we lose the opportunity to understand what is happening in the body, and as a result it just keeps building. And by then it can become so severe that one has to remain dependent on medications. And then this is where the immunity starts to weaken, because by then the fevers, coughs, colds vanish. It just becomes wheezing, or it just becomes a lot of stomach pain, or it just becomes regular issues. And then we try and then somebody comes to say, somebody like me saying, my child is falling recurrently sick or something. And majority of the times they think that, okay, a few doses should sort it out, not realizing that it has chosen a long track to travel inwards. It has to choose the same pathway to travel outwards. It's not going to use another pathway. The body is so intelligent. Let's say you've come through the door, you entered your room through the door. If you have to exit, are you going to go out of the window and exit your room? No, you're going to go back on the same door and then go out of the house. Similarly, disease chooses one pathway to enter, and usually it takes the same pathway to travel outwards.
Correct.
So in that process can sometimes be a month long, 2 months long, 4 months long, 6 months long, depends on what your body decides. We just merely become its ally. That's what I think I do. I'm an ally. Okay, let it be. Don't do anything. I'm 100% sure how much I get cursed, but doesn't matter. I've done my job. They've done it in their heads, and I'm out in my house. But once that process is allowed, you saw how your dehydrated disc got better. It is a deep chronic condition. A deep chronic, for all those of you present here, I want to tell you, she is a standing example. Ishmeet Kaur is a standing example of how your own body can bear the brunt of severe suppression and yet heal from it. And it is not faith healing, because it was too early in her healing journey for her to have faith healing. It was more about how the body responded, because she was young and because she finally understood that the painkillers are not doing anything. I don't know, at some point you should share your story a little
I
bit more.
stared it on my thing, but yeah, definitely. And like you said, it's not the same door through which, I mean, it's the same door that you enter through that you exit as well. So that's how it happened. So as a child, I had such bad tonsils always. I mean, I forever remember being on antibiotics because that was prescribed by the doctors here. So it just went on. I mean, I did not, even to have a tomato ketchup was a luxury. I mean, imagine it was that bad. And today I can have ice cream, I can have anything I want to. I mean, it's what I choose now, of course, because I've learned about it. But other than that, I would even be scared to have a ketchup ki, gala pakda jayega, leave it. That was the way it was always. But I realized that, yes, the dehydrated disc got sorted. Then there were migraines, you remember all those, so many other aches and pains that popped up after that. And
I
layer
remember.
by layer,
You must be remembering a lot.
of course. And layer by layer, it all started getting healed. And now, just to let everybody know, I live a medicine-free life for the last 5-6 years now, thanks to Dr. Manjari and her holistic approach. If she had not changed my diet, if she had not told me, other than giving me homeopathy, if she had not told me you need to change your lifestyle, you need to change your diet, your food needs attention, and you can't just go on eating all of this. So, being a Sardani, I'm a proud vegetarian, almost a vegan, other than my ghee. So, yes, that has been a journey. And trust me, it is not that we people never fall sick. It is not that we will not die. For example, a lot of people feel कि अरे तुम तो कभी मरोगे नहीं, you know, you're on this day. It's not that, but at least it won't be having those n number of pills. It's a journey you choose. So please remember, you choose your doctor, you choose your medication, and you choose your journey. But please do it with faith. I did it with faith. I completely surrendered to Dr. Manjari, and that was it. That was a life-changing experience.
I'm so proud of you for bearing that pain, really. It was, I know, because I see you only for 20-25 minutes, but the rest of the day you have to deal with the pain. The point is, pain is the biggest signal that the body is up to something. In pain, you produce some phenomenal hormones, some phenomenal enzymes and neurotransmitters which communicate with the brain. So wherever your pain may be located, your pain could be in your shoulder, in your ankle, in your back, in your brain, in your head when you have a headache, or in your stomach when you have a stomach pain. But it is communicating. It is communicating to your brain, and then it changes the neural circuitry to enable your own healing. Finally, your body has to live with itself, right? So for us to think that our body doesn't know one damn thing and just take a painkiller medicine is the biggest mistake we make. Painkillers were not invented to be consumed like candy. And this is where our immunity takes a big beating. Why has this pandemic happened? Because one is, it's not something that I don't think it would never happen. I mean, I knew at some point there is going to be a big epidemic, I didn't think of a pandemic. I just thought something like a SARS-CoV-1, what happened in Singapore, that kind of an epidemic is going to happen simply because people travel left, right, and center. There are lots of events which host thousands and thousands of people. So this was a long time coming. But what has got it worse is definitely the fact that people have what they consider immunity. And then, if you remember, I don't know how many of you did drinking the kara in the beginning of the pandemic, boil this, boil that. You will not believe, none of you might probably believe, but in the 16 months of the pandemic, I never drank even a single cup of kara. I might drink some jeera pani, something here, something there, once in a while, only because I feel like it, but never as a kara out of fear. Because I know very well that this is not immune boosting. Whoever claims it is immune boosting, it is not immune boosting that makes you prevent falling sick. No, it doesn't. Also, falling sick is not a sign of bad immunity. This is the other myth that should be busted. First of all, cold, coughs, fevers are not a sign of weak immunity, and falling sick does not mean you have weak immunity. These are the two big myths. Falling sick is a fact that your body can get rest and recover and drain its toxins. And the recovery is what I see, whether you have good immunity or moderate immunity or weak immunity. So some people recover in literally 2 days. I have so many patients who will get a fever. By the second or the third day, they are fine. They throw up. By the second day, they are fine. They have a throat infection. By the third day, they are okay, eating, drinking, everything, asking for food. Yesterday, I had a mother who messaged me, her child was throwing up. She must have thrown up some 15 times. But we checked for her dehydration at home. I sent her a video saying this is what you should check for dehydration. There was no dehydration. We checked her tongue, video, and this and that. Everything was okay. I said, let her sleep. We'll see tomorrow morning. Next morning, no vomiting. In 1 day, she recovered. Was that vomiting a sign of weak immunity? Absolutely not. She was reacting to something her body needed to get rid of. She got rid of it. As soon as she got rid of it, she started asking for water, started asking for food. And that's about it. That's how it should be. As you get better, you will start asking for things. Most people look at hunger as I feel very hungry, as a bad sign. Hunger is the biggest sign of a good immune function. Sleep Sleep is one of my markers. One of the questions I often ask is, how is the sleep? For me, sleep is the biggest marker of immunity. People think cold and cough is immunity. I am fed up. I'm so fed up through the 16 months that cold and cough has got nothing to do with immunity. Sleep, appetite, bowel movement. If you are constipated, you have weak immunity. You could never have a cold. Or people tell me, I have not had a fever for 5 years. Dangerous, dangerous sign, I tell you. You should have your fevers once in a few years to get rid of the toxins that your body can't hold. If you are constipated, bad immunity, that is weak immunity, but nobody, because you don't look like you are sneezing, you need tissues, or you look red-eyed. So people think, oh, constipation is not weak immunity. Most people have walked into the pandemic constipated.
Correct.
And the virus body hasn't been able to identify the virus.
True.
You see? So what is weak immunity is not what you see on the surface. You have to look deeper inside. And that helps you to understand what is weak immunity and what is strong immunity. There are some parents who will bring their children and say, my child has got no problem. I say, very good. Then let's not do anything right now. No, I want to give general immunity medicine. I want to leave my room, close the door.
I can almost see you doing that.
There is no thing like a general immunity booster, simply because that child's system knows what to do. It will get a cold when the child is going first 7 years of life. Allow them to fall sick, because sickness is not a bad thing. Sickness is extremely important to prime your immune system. Malti is smiling because Malti knows exactly how many times we have had this conversation. So 7 years of a child's life, extremely important. They are allowed to fall sick. Those sicknesses are nothing but immune boosting and not weak immunity. So there is no building weak immunity because the body itself is doing it. Yes. So we allow that process. As a homeopath, actually, I think a lot of people think homeopathy is very good for children, because I find that homeopaths allow these processes. They say, it's okay if there is a cold, it's okay if there's a fever. Whereas when you go to a pediatrician, because a pediatrician typically would see, more than 25, 30 patients in a day, they're like, okay, just take this medicine and it's over. And a parent feels better. Okay, at least I have some medicine so that my night is not disturbed. But that one night can only literally be 1 or max 2 nights of discomfort for a year of being healthy. So do not save those 2 nights for you to sleep and have the child suffer for 6-8 months. Ishmeet's son, one of her sons, she has twins. Yeah, with that terrible back, she carried twins, which was amazing.
Thanks to you.
One of her sons, is it okay if I share the story about him?
Yeah.
One of her sons had something known as kissing tonsils, which means the tonsils were like this. They were kissing each other. This boy had no place to breathe. When he would breathe, it would sound like a tractor. She would send me horrendous audio sounds of it. This is how he's breathing. This is how he's breathing. But by the time we reached there, she had stopped panicking. She knew that the tonsils had to shrink on its own. So we aided the process. There were few high fevers that each time a child gets a high fever during a bout of adenoids or tonsils, the adenoids and tonsils shrink a bit. And when that happened, when that process got completed, I think around, I don't know, when he was 6, 7, 8 years old, by then the process finished. The process got over. Now I haven't heard from her for her son for a good 2 years, I think. She hasn't spoken to me about him at all. Yes. And I've stopped asking her because I know if she has not mentioned, it means no news is good news for me, right? I'm not in the process of keeping my client continuity. I'm in the process of finishing as quickly as I can, as soon as I can, with the understanding that they gain themselves. So now she knows very well what to manage. And that is a proud moment for me, not because she has learned how to not panic, most important, because that is the step 1 builder of immunity. And number 2 is children outgrow most illnesses when you allow these basic processes to take place. So
I would like to tell everybody, like Gurleen mentioned at the beginning, most of us who were lucky enough to find Dr. Manjari 14 years ago and understand this have actually kept our kids completely off antibiotics Fortunately, with God's grace, our kids have never taken even one dose of antibiotics. So it is a possibility for all those who believe ki how is it possible? Everybody in the world has it. Well, you choose it. We're
No,
showing
and
you a path.
this is not about antibiotics versus homeopathy. This is
Yeah.
about the fact that we, even the MD doctors I speak to, they will say for things that you can treat, homeopathy can treat, better to treat that way rather than take antibiotics. In fact, most MDs I know are very affected by the fact that antibiotics are consumed, indiscriminately. They're affected by it. They don't like it themselves. They say this is not correct. But I am yet to figure out which breed of doctors it is that is prescribing it, or sometimes I do find that it is not the doctors themselves. I find that the parents insist, please give something for my child so that my child gets better fast. Tomorrow there's concert at school, tomorrow there's sports day at school. Do you remember, I have told you once or twice, I said concert and sports day can come next year. This year health is important.
Yes.
So this is how we need to understand what immunity is. Immunity is not cold, cough, fever or loose motion. That loose motion that you have, this child yesterday who was vomiting, she I figured yesterday that she's probably sensitive to dairy, so her stomach let out every tiny molecule of dairy that she had ingested, and once that process finished, she stopped vomiting.
Fine. Yeah.
Had she been taken to the emergency, she would have been given a drip, which is fair enough, an antiemetic, which means something that stops the nausea, and an antibiotic, assuming there's an infection, without checking the WBC, without checking her other parameters. Okay. So now this child's body has to not only deal with what it is already dealing with, and it has to also deal with an anti-nausea, antibiotic, and perhaps an electrolyte, which she does not require because she was not dehydrated. And then also deal with the lactose intolerance that she has, which I figured because we hadn't given her the drug. But if I had sent her to the ER, I wouldn't have realized it for over 2-3 episodes more that this is a reaction to dairy. When she had the episode last time, which was about a few months ago, I think just during this COVID time, that time also the same, she had eaten a lot of dairy. So I asked the mother, I said, did she eat anything with dairy? Because now I know the history so well. So she said, yes, yesterday she had cheese. I said, looks like it is the same thing. And in between she had not, because of the previous experience, the mother had been very careful, and now she started going to school. You see, until she's at home, the mother could control it, and when she started going to school, this is what happened. So all we need to see is, we need to see it from the body's perspective, not from your anxiety perspective. So immunity is not something that comes from your anxious viewpoint. Immunity is something that you learn to understand what is happening in the body.
Correct. And Dr. Manju, you must share, about classical homeopathy, how you narrow it down. That is very important because in the last few years, it's like I have been interviewing doctors, homeopaths, and most of them say, oh, we practice classical homeopathy. And then I am like, okay, well, this doesn't work. And eventually I zero it out that, okay, I can't go to this doctor. I can't send anybody to this doctor. And this is it. So, that is very, very important because everybody doesn't have an approach how you have it. It has to be a holistic approach.
Now, I've learned from my teachers, so I know a lot of people who have the same approach.
You must share the names with me because
Very simply, I'll just give you a very simple understanding.
yeah.
Very simply put, classical homeopathy takes into account your individual symptoms.
Correct.
So when I have Ishmeet who came to me with back pain, I needed to ask her what is it in the back pain that is so specific to her condition. So at that time, when Ishmeet has headaches, for example, Ishmeet would tell me, I have to sit erect. I cannot lay down. For me, that is a classical symptom, which helps me to arrive at one single remedy at that time, and that is classical homeopathy. Another homeopath is likely to give a standard medication for headache, to give a standard medication for head pain and something else, maybe a combination of 2 or 3, assuming one will work. But with me, I look at that one particular symptom that is elicited by her body, which is a classical symptom, a typical symptom, so to speak. And that usually has only usually one or maximum two remedies. Out of that also I choose one. So at each time there is only one single remedy that is given, and that remedy works, and that approach is a classical homeopathy approach. This is the only thing. There is no secret formula, absolutely no secret formula. Any homeopath can do it, and
And
I
they
want
choose not to.
more homeopaths to do it.
Yeah, I also want most of them to do it. It's a big struggle, honestly, because they choose not to do it. And, by the end of it, I feel, okay, this is not working right. So even if I've told somebody to go in for homeopathy, and, if it's a synergic way of practicing, now that I understand it, I feel that, okay, the person hasn't recovered the way the person would have recovered. Because I remember it was my brother's wedding, and the day before, my son had egg. Remember, somebody
Yes.
had accidentally fed him, and he had fever. And next morning, I'm supposed to be at the wedding, and this guy is throwing up. And I called up Dr. Manjari and I was like, okay, what do I do? She said, just give him one dose of this and he'll be sorted. So it is not that myth that homeopathy takes forever. It is not like that. That is very important to understand. So we
Yeah.
have
So
the
that's
quick
one thing
fixes here.
about people telling me that, oh, I know, many people come back to tell me that, oh, I know this is going to take time. I know this is going to take time.
Mm.
Earlier, I would try very hard, spend a good 10 minutes explaining why it doesn't take. Now, I feel a bit sort of, um, I don't want to use the word upset because I'm not really upset, but I'm like, you know what, if you think it's going to take time, bye bye. You do what you think you're doing, and thank you. I'll see my next patient. Simply because you've come to me with a problem that has lasted 5 years or 10 years or maybe 6 months. This may not take that, this is not going to take you 5 years to get better, whatever the condition.
Correct.
Very rarely. I mean, if you have a progressive neurological disease, let's say like Alzheimer's, yes, that cannot be cured. But even then, the maintenance part of it does not take as long as something else would do. People
Mm.
come to me with thyroid, taking thyroxine for 20 years, but they think that homeopathy takes long. This is this is like a big slap on our faces when it is not like this. If I actually sit down to seriously reverse hypothyroidism, trust me, it doesn't take me more than 12 months.
I agree
And
completely.
I have reversed a lot of hypothyroid cases, and not because I want to prove my point of reversing, but it just happens organically because their bodies are finding a way to heal themselves. Just supporting them with an understanding and empowering with how to make some basic shifts, and that's about it. You don't need to do too much, honestly, but it doesn't take time. I have had extremely severe food poisoning myself. 24 to 36 hours without going to the hospital, I've been fine. My children have had high fevers. Without going to the hospitals, we've been fine. Not that I'm averse. I have worked in a hospital. I've worked as a resident, a pediatric resident. I've worked in the dialysis ward. I've worked in HIV ward. I've worked in TB ward. I know what a hospital setup is, and I value it for what they offer. When to go, when not to go. I feel there has to be some kind of a hierarchy. So patients will first manage themselves at home with the understanding they have. Next, they should go to an alternative practitioner who's trained extremely well clinically to be able to spot severity from non-severity. There are times when I have told Ishmeet, no, I cannot treat your child because I haven't examined him. So she would take the effort, go to a pediatrician. This was in the beginning days when they just moved to India. And
Mm.
she would get it checked. She would get me a written note that this is the only thing that is there. There's no pneumonia, that everything, we rule out everything. And then when I treat, it doesn't take too long. It literally is a day's job. You
Yes.
know, it takes us lesser time than a 5 day or a 7 day course of antibiotics. Now, UTI, a week ago, somebody came up with a UTI. She would have otherwise taken a 10-day course of antibiotics. Believe me, when you treat it with homeopathy, it takes less than 3 days. So tell me which is long term, which is short term. Use your own common sense and tell me. All of you here. What takes 10 days antibiotics and 3 days of homeopathy with classical homeopathy? Which is law shock? हाँ homeopathy को बहुत time लगता है. Is 3 days long? Yeah, but obviously you're not receiving a painkiller. So you are experiencing the pain, which makes every moment seem like eternity. I understand.
Yeah.
But calculate, and then tell me. So this is where I want to, the reason I use that Instagram page is to bust these myths. Patients are free to go wherever they want, but take this understanding with you. This is what is most important.
And it's very important for patients to know that they have a right to ask. So I must share with everyone that Dr. Manjari was on leave and I happened to visit her clinic. And there was a doctor attending there. Do you remember? Who told me, koi baat nahi, sir dard hai, to you can have a Panadol. And I told her, but Dr. Manjari doesn't allow. And I have not been having Panadol from all my Combiflams and Nimelids and whatever. And she was like, she actually called up Dr. Manjari and she said, oh, your patient came and told me that she will not even have a Panadol because you've told her not to have it. So, unfortunately, Dr. Manjari, we don't have as many doctors who practice that way.
No, but again, you see, I'll tell
It
you one thing.
is-
You knew you're not supposed to take a Panadol,
Yes.
but it's almost like you wanted somebody else to say it to you as well. So to give you reassurance, you have to see. This is why this webinar is important in a way, because I'm telling you that there is toxicity buildup and the body is looking to drain it. Simple.
Yes.
Allow the process. How difficult is it? I have written death certificates because I used to work as a resident doctor. I haven't written a single death certificate that says patient died of headache because the head was pounding in pain. No, all deaths are cardiorespiratory arrests. Or of course, if there is something like a burn or if there's like an accident or something, it's a different story. But no one dies of a headache except if there is an organic pathology. If there's a burst aneurysm or something, that is of course a completely different scenario. You would already know it, right?
Correct.
But each headache, to assume each headache to be detrimental to you and I can't bear it, then there are some times when there are very severe pain episodes. I had a lady a week ago, close to her mid 70s, with a severe gallbladder pain. I told the patients, please wheel her into emergency right now because I don't know how her heart function is. We have done an ultrasound, we know the state of her gallbladder, but I do not know her heart function. What if her ejection fraction is low? What if that pain is going to cause her trouble? So they went to the hospital, they got her checked. She was fine. The old lady herself said, I do not want a surgery, got back home. Next day, she became better. It was a gallbladder pain. She had a gallbladder stone. So for me, that was a victory of that woman. It's not about me anymore. It's about that woman who could see that this pain will last only a short time and it is going to go.
Right. Correct.
And she says, now today she's much, in a week, 3 days later, she was absolutely fine. She's saying, now what can I eat? She asked. So this is the whole journey when you start homeopathy treatment. Homeopathy treatment is not immunity boosting. Don't consider it immunity medicine. This is the biggest myth that we have. People sell pills based on immunity. No, it doesn't work like that. Immunity is something you have within you. You are merely allowing it to get toned each time your body conveys you something. It is a fine tuning. You understand fine tuning. You have a knife that you use to chop your vegetables. The knife becomes blunt after a time. Either you throw that knife away, which is like discarding your body, which happens to a lot of people, or you use a sharpening tool and sharpen the knife. Has anybody seen a sharpening tool, or nobody has seen a sharpening tool? The sharpening tool is extremely rough.
Yeah.
And only that can sharpen a knife. So similarly, when you are going through so detox is not drinking juices, by the way. Detox is that running nose coming out, the ear infection sorting itself out, the throat in severe pain. Oh, my throat was in such severe pain, I had to take an antibiotic. This I had to take an antibiotic is the patient talking, not the organ talking. The organ, poor thing, is trying to remove it. The patient is saying, I can't remove, I don't want to deal with it, that's it. I want to go to work, or I want to do this, I want to. So this is what it is. You allow the system to work itself out, support the process, and immunity is yours. It doesn't come from any medicine. You should, if you meet people who say, I'm taking immunity homeopathy, trash them right away then and there and give my name. It's okay. But remember, immunity is something that is within you. It only needs to keep upgrading itself every now and then. It can upgrade only when it is connected to battery,
Yes.
connected to power. What is the power? The power is that your body is every day when you sleep. I was telling my daughter the other day that 24/7 your body is working. Your mind needs a weekend off, but your body does not need a weekend off. And in that period is when the whole cleanup job takes place. So most days you may wake up fresh, but some days you may not wake up fresh. Those days, perhaps it has tried to accomplish something, and trust the process. Don't pop a pill to make yourself feel better and go through the next day, or don't end up doing overdoing your food or underdoing your food either, you know. So those are the detrimental things. I think I've spoken too much.
No, it's perfect. I think, so when I started going to Dr. Manjari, I used to tell her, please give me an appointment. She said, but your appointment is like, a week later or something. And I used to tell her, no, please give me an appointment. I need to see you. She said, why? I said, I need my supply. She's like, of what? So like she said, you need the battery. So for me, I used to tell her, oh, I need my oxygen supply. I need some brainwashing. Because it was so overwhelming. Everybody around me used to think I'm crazy. I've changed my food completely. I don't want to pop in any pill. I'm going through a pain where I actually want to go and bang my head against the wall because of the headaches. Do you remember, Dr. Manjari? And I would say, no, but I'm not going to pop in a pill. I'm just going to take this headache and trust me, it was very difficult. I totally can understand when you all go through the pain. But, over the years, I've learned that pain, it started to subside on its own. So the first time I had a headache, it was say on a percentile of 100. And then the next time it was on 95, then 90. And then all of a sudden it probably came down to a 70 and then a 50 and gradually completely gone. And that wouldn't have happened if she would have still continued to give me medicine, which I've got my share of
I
scoldings
don't give
for.
belladonna for headache. You understand why? Because
Yes.
you don't require it every time, because each time the dynamic is changing.
Correct.
And you must allow, as it gets better, the dynamic changes further. The number of medicines you require lessen, the number of doctor visits you require lessen. All of this happens simultaneously in the time that you are taking your homeopathy treatment. Let's say somebody says your homeopathic treatment lasted 1 year, but you did not get better on the 365th day. You started getting better as you started allowing the process to unravel. So day 29, day 35, day 47, day 54, all those are important days, right? So this is how it is. This is the way immunity works. And immunity is not a pill. Immunity is not a booster shot. Immunity is not in your juice. Immunity is not something that you can get by drinking kada or something. No, it's the biggest myth. Yes, those help. I mean, all the spices have a role to play. All the food we eat has a role to play. But if I'm going to tell you that haldi doodh is an immune booster, then it's a big mistake I'm making, because it is not. To another person, that very haldi doodh can be a cause for great distress, because it can build a lot of phlegm in his body, right? So each body has a different way of addressing its own immune requirements.
Yeah.
So what works for me may not work for you. What works for her may not work for me.
True.
So therefore immunity is not a constant. Immunity is very dynamic. And once you understand the dynamic inside your body is when your healing and your immune boosting can take place.
So if anybody has any questions, you can please type them in the chat box and we'll be taking them in another 5 minutes. Yeah, and then we'll wind up because we're almost at an hour. And this is one subject we both can talk about for hours.
You can wake me up in my sleep and I can talk about it.
I know.
I live and breathe this only, nothing else. Now my children know it.
I think all children know it. All children treated by Dr. Manjari. Oh, Mama, just ask Dr. Manjari. Mama, Manjari auntie ko puch
I
lo.
remember my daughter was, I think, 5 or 6 years old when one of my patients called me and said, my child has a fever. I was telling the mother, see, the first 24 hours, you keep a watch, give her lots of fluids and all. And it was one of the first times that my child was sitting next to me and I was talking on the phone. Typically, I take calls in private. So she said, it's just a fever, mama, And I was like, I'm glad I can just, become a monk now. My daughter knows what a fever is and how to manage it.
And I remember she, as a kid, also was very fond of, reading the homeopathy book.
Yeah.
I still remember that.
I saw the video a few weeks ago. A book was open and she was just 2 years old or 2.2 months or something. And homeopathy and homeopathy. She was saying it is so cute. It is all in her blood, in her DNA.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was amazing. So all I know is that I'm not anti anything. I'm not anti allopathy. I'm not anti mainstream medicine. I'm not anti. My thing is that there are things that can be treated in a much better way, or well, not much better way, but there are ways you can treat the same problem in a way that you don't need to resort always to chemical medicines. Also, remember, take cues from your own experiences. You had a headache once, maybe you treated it with painkiller. You had a headache twice, you took a second time painkiller. By the time you get a headache the third time, stop and ask yourself, what is happening to me? Your child has a skin rash, you applied something. The skin rash increased, you applied a little bit more. By the time it gets worse, stop. Do not continue to do the same thing or change a pediatrician and go to another pediatrician because the first one's ointment didn't work. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Take cues from what is happening to your body. This is very important. This is what I allow my patients to understand. As hard as it is for some people, but I think this is the way to do it. There is no other way. This is how our ancient doctors did it. In the ancient times, doctors were paid a stipend to help people maintain their health. If they fell sick, then the doctor's stipend was cut off.
I think that was a good approach.
Yeah. And today, what is
That's
happening?
nice.
A patient comes to a doctor only when they are sick. How can I restore the health then in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? It's a lifetime's job.
True.
Big difference in how how medicine has changed, how an approach to sickness and health has changed.
Dr. Manjari, let's do some questions. So there is okay, Janvi is requesting you to make a video on tips to reverse Hashimoto thyroid.
No, so I cannot make a video on tips to reverse Hashimoto's thyroid because each unique individual is different, and each person whose Hashimoto's has developed due to a specific reason. So we need to identify. There could be some small commonalities that maybe they need to stop taking pain medication if they are taking any. They may have to change their lifestyle and watch how foods affect them. If some people get affected by gluten, then maybe they should stop it. If some people get affected by dairy, then maybe they should stop that. But there cannot be a common protocol. So I refrain from doing all these things even on my Instagram because I don't think one size fits all. So if everybody is going to go off gluten, dairy, sugar, some people may miss out on essential nutrients. So it is very, very individual and specific. Unfortunately, because it has become an epidemic on its own, hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, we tend to think that there could be something common that could help all of them, but no, unfortunately, there is no such thing.
Correct. And I would like to tell everyone that
just one word, that Hashimoto's thyroiditis, if the TSH is within normal limits, shouldn't take thyroxine. That is one thing I will tell you, which even a very good endocrinologist will know this. But an average endocrinologist is probably going to give you thyroxine. I saw this last week, I saw a lady with Hashimoto. She's had Hashimoto's for 9 years now. Her thyroid antibodies are in the hundreds range, so 3 digits. But for 7 years, she has never taken thyroxine. So if you are a Hashimoto's patient and if you're taking thyroxine, I think you should have a sit down with an endocrinologist and find out whether this is essential, especially if your TSH is normal, and maybe reduce and then eventually stop. And definitely seek out classical homeopathy.
Then there's somebody asking, how can we consult you from India?
A bit tough currently.
Yeah.
Because the current rules prevent me from seeing anybody outside Dubai. But I have an Instagram highlight on my Instagram page, which, by the way, my Instagram page is known as Real Homeopathy, where I have written down names of some doctors who practice in different parts of India. So those who want to approach them, I know most of them I know personally. Some of them are in my global homeopathy group, the classical homeopaths group. So you can look up that, seek an appointment with them and go see them, and that will be good. So they will know me also, and I will be happy that you went to somebody I know.
Irene is saying, homeo helped me recover from a severe throat in a day.
No, homeo didn't help. Irvine, where are you? I can't see you. Irvine, I had to shout at you. After that, your sore throat got better. She's laughing.
Okay, then there is how to handle yeast infection in stool in kids.
Yeast infection. By the time an yeast infection has happened, ask yourself if you have given the child more than 1 round of antibiotics in that year.
Hmm.
Whoever has asked the question. More than 1 round of antibiotic has gone in, then clearly the yeast infection is going to be there.
Yeah. Nidhi is
How to
asking,
clear it? Stop the antibiotic. Usually it tends to resolve itself. Do not give too many fermented foods, especially at night. Do not overdo milk and dairy and all of those things. And do not give outside junk food, which contains things that can kill good microorganisms and promote the fungus and the yeast.
Hmm.
Because outside food is typically stale. Let's say you have a habit of going out on the weekends to eat at a restaurant. Potato, if you eat anything with aloo, potatoes are boiled 3 months in advance, so those contain some amount of mold. Please be very careful. Okay, I'm not scaring you for no reason, but this is important to understand.
how to cure stomach worms in kids.
You don't need to cure stomach worms. You have to have a healthy gastric juice to cure it. It cures itself. I do not use deworming for any of the children who come to see me.
Yeah. And please try home remedies. You can look them up on the Alternative Initiative. Actually, this is covered there. What is your POV on COVID vaccine?
COVID vaccine is a very sensitive subject, which but I have one very important view, and that is that from whatever reading I have done, it is, I mean, we are seeing far less, even in Dubai with the cardiologists and the specialists I meet, we are seeing far less admissions in the ICU, which is a proof that severe disease is, uh, getting curbed by the vaccine. At the moment, no stream of medicine seems to have anything to treat severe COVID. So we need something that prevents severe COVID, and the vaccine is doing that. Vaccine, however, is not preventing transmission. Vaccine is not preventing you from catching the disease. And if you do catch it, it is mild in nature. So it does have a role to play at the moment. Only time will tell whether is this permanent or is it only a short lasting or something.
There is somebody asking, my daughter is facing severe hair fall issues due to iron deficiency. Please help me out.
It's okay. Iron deficiencies in young children are common. Just leave it. Unless it is a thalassemia related deficiency and something needs to be done about it. But otherwise, just leave it. They outgrow it. And make sure don't give too many antibiotics. Make sure you give a wholesome diet. Make sure you don't eat every weekend out. If you eat every weekend out,
Correct.
thank you.
What are the traits of good gut health? I think this requires a whole one session.
Good gut health. In a very simple way, you should feel amazing in your stomach. You should not be reminded of your stomach.
Yeah.
If you don't feel bloated, good gut health. Every morning, you should poop. Every morning, wake up and poop, and the poop should look like a nice sausage. Good gut health. That's it. Two important things. You should not be reminded of your stomach. Right now, I'm sitting, I don't even know if I have a stomach. And not from the size, but from how it feels. And every morning, type 4, sausage like stool, without requiring tea, coffee, water, hot water, walking, exercise, apple, banana, bread, whatever, breakfast, without anything. You wake up, open your eyes, there is a message that goes to the stomach that the stuff needs to be eliminated. Go sit on the pot, 2 minutes, you are done without straining, without that is great gut health. Only two things you require. Sensation as if there's no rumbling, no bloated feeling, no, oh, I'm feeling so full, and no constipation. That's it. If you have this two, you don't need to do anything more.
Mugda is asking, are there homeopathic remedies for xanthelasma?
Xanthelisma. So there's no one particular remedy, but xanthelisma is a condition that develops because there is extra circulating triglycerides and cholesterol. And when you treat the liver for cholesterol and triglyceride, then the xanthelisma typically seems to shrink. I have 3-4 patients whose xanthelismas have shrunk.
Nidhi is asking, ma'am, in Dubai also, please tell how do we consult you?
So my clinic is there, no, Emirates European Medical Center.
Yeah, but Dr. Manjari is on leave for the next 1 month.
Yeah. I have some exams to finish, so I'm taken a little time off for myself, which otherwise I don't get. So
But I would suggest,
I will be able
Nidhi,
to see you
please,
all after a month. Yeah.
yeah, book your appointment now. Otherwise, you have to wait longer.
Yes, Gurleen has reached home.
Yeah, Gulina has reached home. Okay, I didn't see her. All right, and then I'm consulting Dr. Shiribanu after reading Dr. Manjari's highlight only.
I'm glad. Shiribanu and I did internship together, and oh, what fun it was.
Yeah. And ma'am, no antibiotics given in a year. Can you please elaborate more on fermented foods?
If you're
Like
not
we
given it
can
in a
give
year, you give it
juices.
last year.
Somewhere.
Whenever you give it, it depends on the body's ability to drain it. This is exactly what I spoke in the beginning. If it hasn't yet drained it, then that yeast is what? Yeast is fungus. What is fungus? Fungus is something that grows in an opportunistic environment. When there is an antibiotic impact, the good gut bacteria haven't grown again. Fungus or virus takes the opportunity. Hey, we have this body to party. That's how it is.
Yeah. Are there any more questions or are we done? So I would please elaborate on fermented foods. That's again come in. Manjari.
Elaborate on fermented foods. Yeah, the ones that you can ferment at home. Idli, dosa, dokla, then homemade dahi, homemade butter, homemade ghee, the stuff that we know, homemade achar, basic stuff. I mean, fermented, which is naturally fermented due to the action of good bacteria and not stale food. So a lot of people, there is only a specific day in the calendar year that stale food is eaten. But the rest of the times, if you're going to put your rice in the fridge or your sprouts in the fridge or your kneaded dough in the fridge, then that is going to cause, it is going to have mold grow over it, microscopic mold. So then that, if you're going to eat, reheat or something, then that is not good for your health. So essentially, food has to be as fresh as possible. There are no specific foods for good gut health. No, you can't eat something and have a type 4 sausage like stool, unfortunately. Sorry. It is a function that has come due to certain factors. Your intestines are 22 feet in length. You can't eat one type of food and influence the entire 22 feet. No. The intestinal tract can have trapped mucus, trapped phlegm, trapped feces, trapped infections. Who is going to remove all that? That one particular food you think will remove? Kombucha or something? No, don't fall for all that. Okay. Don't waste your money on all that. So it requires a concerted effort by your body. If you don't have good gut health, and if you get a bout of loose motion, go through that loose motion process. Let that toxin be eliminated. I know people who do, what is it called? I'm trying to think. Retreats where they will take an enema every day and see gunk coming out from their, colon, and that they pay lots of money for it, thousands of dollars for it. They're willing to do that, but if your own body does it, somehow we just stop the process. I don't know why we do such things. 2 loose motions, 3 loose motions, 4 loose motions, just deal with it. It is going to clean up the system. And the next day you will feel amazing. I really don't understand why this is such a problem.
Risham is asking any remedy for blisters.
Blisters? What, blisters in the mouth?
Yeah.
Just again, the same. It reflects the gut health only. Apply some ghee or some honey every time there's a blister. And understand that till it is coming. Oh, she still gets it. She's probably dehydrated. And she has to drink more water. Chew your food nicely. Yeah. And don't use very strong toothpaste, because strong toothpaste can also irritate the mucus lining. So use mild toothpaste.
Simon Senem says it was a great opportunity to listen to you. We would like to hear more about homeopathy. And Janvi is asking about
anytime I'm willing to talk about homeopathy.
I agree. Janvi's saying foods for good gut health. And ma'am, for yeast infection in stool, what types of foods to avoid?
The food that contain artificial yeast, breads, cookies, pastries, stale food. Don't eat restaurant food. They definitely contain some kind of mold. So if you stop eating all those things, a little bit will improve, and the little bit will improve organically. On its own, also it improves, tends to improve. Make sure the food is freshly cooked, and food has a lot of ginger, ghee. Don't use oil, because oil is hard to digest. When there is already yeast in your gut lining, and then when you eat food that is heavy, then the body has to waste its time digesting that food rather than getting rid of the yeast. You understand? And don't feed very high protein food to young children. The young children require a more carbohydrate rich diet. Whoever is giving high protein to their children, stop it right away. Children need more carbohydrates.
Kirit is asking, Doctor, I had read on your Insta about a child who was very angry, was found out that the mother was angry during pregnancy. My child is 18 months old and is very aggressive and gets angry very fast and hits out frequently. What can I do?
18-month-old child, I'm not sure how much vocabulary the child has, trying to convey something. Make sure that you understand what the child is conveying. Don't read it as anger and aggression. This is also an effective form of communication, you know. So it's trying to draw your attention, and also check whether, the child is eating well or not, in the sense that what happens is that we end up feeding our children too much or too little. Either the child is on a lot of milk still. By 18 months, the child should literally be on maximum one bottle of milk, not more, or one breastfeed, not more. If the child is having too many milk feeds and too little solid, it is going to be cranky, and a cranky child will show some aggression. So watch out. You figure out how the thing is, and obviously don't get irritated. It's a very delicate situation where you will probably it's very hard to not lose your cool when your child is upset and angry. But trust that it is just lack of vocabulary and trying to convey to the mother that something is happening. It is not making your life miserable.
Uh, is mustard oil and ghee fine to be consumed in Hashimoto's?
Yeah, but not too much.
Amazing session and so much to learn from Dr. Manjari. Look forward to meeting you soon. All the best for your exams. Nidhi is saying.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking a precious hour out of your Thursday routines to come and hear me talk. I talk most of these things anyway on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm very honored. I love talking about these things. Even if there's just one person, I will still talk this for the longest time I can.
But thank you so much, Dr. Manjari, for taking out time. I know it's been a busy weekend. It's like the weekend in Dubai and you have lots to do. Thank you so much for taking time out and for joining us. And there's a lot of people here thanking you as well.
Thank you so much.
There's
Good
somebody...
luck to all of you, and don't worry about immunity. Immunity knows its job.
Yes. And please listen to your body. Most importantly, that's what we all learn from Dr. Manjari, and it really helps. Trust me. That's what helped me stay without medication for all these years. Even if it's something that comes up, please resort to any alternative medicine. That's my request, and that's the purpose of the alternative initiative, because as easily as you pop in that crocin with the faith that it will cure your headache or it will cure your fever and whatever else you want to take it for, remember the body is way more intelligent. Whether you pop it in for a sore throat or you pop it in for the headache, how does the crocin know? It's your body which knows. So please resort to any form of alternative medicine instead of going in for allopathy at the first instance. Definitely it is a science, and a lot of regard to those doctors. They've been frontline warriors, especially during this time. And I'm not against them, but please go to them only when it is really, really required. Let's take charge of our own selves, because how much you will care for your own body, nobody else will. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And
lots of thank yous on the sides as well, Dr. Manjari.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you all. We would end the meeting here.